Hey, what's up guys? Dimple Games here. I'm going to try to give you guys a quick tutorial on how to play, well hopefully a quick tutorial on how to play Magic 2014. This game is pretty complicated, I'm not going to lie, but I'm going to do my best to try to explain the basics of the game. So, what is the point of Magic 2014? Magic 2014 is a card battling game where you try to kill your opponent. Each player starts off with 20 health, and using the cards in your deck, you try to lower the opponent's health to below 20 or 0. So, in order to do that, there's a ton of different cards you can play. I'm going to try to go over each one by one. So, probably definitely the most important part of your deck and what allows you to play all your other cards is lands. Each turn, you're able to lay one land onto the battlefield. Actually, let's try to illustrate this real quick. So I'm going to start an encounter. I'm going to actually load up a quick game here. So, as you'll see right now, I got a bunch of cards. When you first start the game, you get to pick 7 cards, or you draw 7 cards. You can choose to keep the hand, or you can draw a new hand and see if you can get a better one. Probably outside of this scope, just to kind of describe what a good hand is. So we're just going to go ahead and go with this one. So, when the game first starts, you can see it now, it highlights your lands. Each turn you can play one land, and you use these lands to play your spells, or your creatures, or whatever cards you have in your hand. So this card right here is a sorcery, and it takes 1 land to play. If you look at some other ones, like this one, it takes 2 lands, and then 4 of any color. There's different color decks, and you can mix and match them, so if you had a blue land or a black land, like you could play that in this 4, and then it would take 2 greens. So that's the first type of card we have, is the lands. You use them to play all your other ones. You only play one per turn, but it doesn't mean that you can't have more than one put onto the battlefield during your turn. And as we're talking about battlefield, that means pretty much this area here. So right now, if I play this, boom, it's on the battlefield. And you'll notice that another really important thing about Magic is that it's sitting upright. In order to use this card, or to get the benefits from it, you have to tap it and turn it sideways. And the act of doing that adds mana for you to play your cards. So, okay. Alright, there's a lot to cover here. So, you're able to play these cards only during your main phase. There's 3 phases when you start your turn. The first one is main. Then there's a combat phase, which we're about to jump into, and then there's another main phase, and then your turn ends. So, in the very beginning, during your first main phase, when it's your turn, everything, creatures, lands, everything that you tapped in your previous turn, all those cards become untapped and go back up. So, you can reuse these lands every turn. You can only tap them once for your turn, but after that, they untap, and you can use them again. So, alright, so we just did our main phase, we played a land. That's cool, right? We're good. I could have played these other cards, but there's really no use. I won't explain really why I don't want to use them now, but let's just say that I didn't want to. So, alright, we're going in the combat phase, but since I don't have any creatures, I can battle. And I'll cover that when I get some creatures out there. And then we're going to go into our next main phase, where I could choose to play something, but none of these cards really make sense. I can't play them, so the game already knows that, and it's going to skip my turn. Right? So now, it's the other player's turn. They have the same thing. They have their main phase, where they play cards. They have their combat phase, where they fight, and then another main phase afterwards. So, he played his land. What's he going to do? Okay. So, let's see. He just played a creature card. That's the other type of card. And this one's really important. So, okay. You see, he tapped his land. He used it to play this card and put it out onto the battlefield. And boom, there he is. So one thing to note about... Well, no, let's back up. Creature cards, the main thing to notice about them is their power and toughness. So if next turn, during his combat phase, he wanted to attack me for 2, and I had no other creatures out on the battlefield, he would deal 2 damage to me, and that would drop me down to 18. So after 10 turns, if he just had this guy and I never played another card, he would end up winning the game. I can put out my own set of creatures with their own varying power of toughness to either block him or attack him, right? Excuse me. So one thing to note here too, well, never mind, we'll cover that later. So now it's my turn. You notice everything untapped. Well, actually, no, I had nothing to tap, but if I did, they would have turned upright, which you'll see him, both of his guys will. Let's play this one here. And now I'm able to play this guy. This is the creature. His power is 3 and his toughness is 2. And normally that's all you really care about with creatures. Well, not really normally, but most of the time that's the main thing. Sometimes they have special text that allows them to do other stuff. Like my guy has trample. I'm not going to cover what each one means, so you can go and look online to see what trample is and what it does for your creature. But the main thing to notice here is that he costs 2 land to play, and he has a power and toughness of 3, or power of 3 and toughness of 2. So I'm going to put him out during my main phase. See, I tap the lands, and boom, my guy's out there. So it's going to skip my combat phase, and the reason why it's skipping my combat phase is that when you first put out a creature, for that turn he is sick, which means that he cannot be tapped sideways to attack the other player. So the game knows that I can't do anything with him. It's going to skip my combat phase, and we're going to move into my next main phase. But it's also going to notice that I have no land to play anything. There's nothing I can play, so it's going to skip that turn too. Or not that turn, but that phase. So we're going out of combat, skip my main, we're going to end. Now boom, all their stuff untapped, right? During the beginning of their main phase, everything untapped. He gets to play another land if he has one, and then he can play a spell, and so on. You can play more than one spell or one creature per turn. It doesn't really matter. As long as you have enough mana or land to play it, you can keep playing all day long. Okay, so he's choosing to attack me. He turned his guy sideways. He's saying, hey, yo bro, I'm going to attack you. What are you going to do about it? So at that point, I get a chance to choose which creatures, if I had more than one, I can block this guy. And so, once we've decided, which I'm going to go ahead and do here, just for the sake of showing you. It's not the smartest play, but I'm going to do it. Okay, it's telling me, hey, it's your turn to block, buddy. What do you want to do? So you drag the card to him. And when I hit block, what's going to happen is he's going to deal his 2 damage at the same time that I deal my 3 damage. My 3 damage is going to kill him because he only has 2 health, and his 2 damage is going to kill my guy because he only has 2 health. And so let's see what happens. Boom. Now when cards or spells get played, they go into your player's graveyard. It's kind of a resting place for all your cards. There's certain spells and abilities that you can play that pulls them out of your graveyard, but we're not going to worry about that now. Just if anything dies or gets played, it goes into here unless stated otherwise. So now he's on his second main phase, and he decided he wants to play another guy, which is totally fine. You can play a card during your main phase whenever. So I didn't get a land. I only got 2 lands, so I can't play any of these bigger cards because I don't have enough land. But I can play this guy for 2 green, another creature who has 3 power and 3 toughness. So let's put him out. Okay, I'm going to show you guys spells in a minute. You're going to like this. You're going to like it. Okay, he played a land, his combat phase. Now see, he didn't want to fight me because he would have came at me for 2. I would have came at him for 3. He would have dealt me 2 damage, which would have left me with 1, and then I would have killed his guy. And the thing about that is, even though I had 1 health, at the end of whoever's turn it was, all of the creatures regain their health. So if you don't kill that creature during that turn, it's still going to be alive during the next turn. So that's why it didn't make sense for him to try to attack me, because it's not going to lower me, he's just going to die and my guy's going to be perfectly fine. So let's continue. Still didn't get a land. It's not the end of the world, but alright. So check this out. So during your turn you can play sorceries. Now remember I said there's 2 types of spells. There's ones that say sorcery, and there's ones, do I have one? That say, I don't have one, but it'll say instant on it. They're basically the same thing, only difference is when you can play them. If you have a sorcery, you can only play that during your turn. And it's only during your main phase. So if you're in the middle of combat and you're like, hey, I want to play the sorcery, you cannot do it. You can only play it during your main phase, your first one, or your second main phase. It doesn't matter. You can't play it at all during their turn. But instants, on the other hand, that's totally different. You can play those whenever. Their turn, during combat, it doesn't matter. One important thing that I should probably mention with instants is if you play an instant and they play one, right, like in response to yours, both of the spells go onto a stack. So your first spell will go on the stack, and then their spell will go on the stack, and then once you could even play another one after that, and that would go on top of the stack. However many you play, they'd all go on top of the stack, and at the end, they'll pop them all off the stack, and they'll do the top one first, then the one next, and so on and so forth. So that's something really important to think about, because for instance, like if he played an instant that would kill my creature right here, let's say I played an instant that picks the creature up and puts him back in my hand. So he plays kill spell first. That would go on the stack. I'd play my bounce, or the thing that returns it to my hand. That would go on top of the stack, and then we'd be done. And so it would pop off the stack. It would do my bounce first, which would put my creature back in my hand. Then the kill spell would try to hit a creature that's no longer there. It would fizzle out and go into the graveyard. So that's something really important to think about when you're thinking about instants. Okay, so let's go ahead and play this sorcery here. This one allows me to basically fight with the other creature like we would in combat if we were blocking or attacking. So I'm going to use that to kill his guy. It's also going to demonstrate the whole life thing that I was talking about earlier. So I'm going to use my guy to fight his guy. Boom, his guy died. And as you see, the damage stuck on me, but at the end of my turn it's going to go away. Let's talk about enchantments too. So we talked about spells. The other thing we have is enchantments. There's two types of enchantments. There's ones that are just straight up enchantments, and then there's ones that say aura. The ones that say aura actually go onto creatures, and the ones that say enchantments just sit on the battlefield, and whatever ability or text they have in it, it just happens as long as it's still on the battlefield. So we're going to play this aura that's going to enchant my creature, and it's going to give him +2 to his power here, and then +0 to his toughness. It doesn't make him any tougher. And then also has an additional text that says when this Rancor is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, which if you have enchantments or equipment on your creature, when it dies, it goes with it into the battlefield, or into the graveyard. Actually, I take that back. Artifacts don't. Enchantments do. So if my creature were to die, the creature and this card would go into the graveyard. But this says whenever Rancor is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, return Rancor to its owner's hand. That's pretty nice. So we're going to go ahead and play this. You can only play enchantments during your main phase. They aren't instants. So it is my main phase. I'm going to go ahead and play this right before combat so I can get more damage. And then it's my combat phase. He has no creatures, so when I attack, all that is just going to go to his health over here. And boom. So he's at 15, I'm at 20. You see my health, you see that? My health got returned, so at the end of the turn, the health comes back to normal. Okay, he's playing this guy. He's a 2 power, 2 toughness, and it allows him to pull a creature out of his graveyard. It's written right there in the text. It's just what that creature does. So there he goes. He puts it into his hand. He couldn't attack. He couldn't have mana to play any creatures, so it skipped his turn. You see my guy untapped. We're back here. Go ahead and play my land. And let's put out another creature. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and attack since I have 3 toughness. There's really nothing he could do to me. Normally too, I should mention this. So I was talking about the text on things. This thing gives my creature trample, and so what that means is if I attacked right now, I would deal 5 damage to that creature. if I didn't have trample, all that 5 damage would go to the creature. It only takes 2 to kill him, but the other 3 damage would just disappear. What trample does is it allows that damage, the extra damage, instead of disappearing, it's going to go to the player. So if I were to attack right now, and he blocked, he would still take 3 damage. Since I do 5, it only takes 2 to kill him. Which he decided not to block. Interesting. So I'm halfway there. He's got 10 health, I still have 20. He played another creature, and he still has land. Like, if he has another creature, he can keep playing them until he runs out of land. He's got 3 land left. I guess he has nothing else to play. Excuse me. Okay, so I got another land. I can play this sorcery here, which will allow me to destroy a non-creature permanent. So what are permanents? Permanents are basically things that stay on the battlefield. So creatures are permanent, enchantments are permanent, lands are permanent. You notice that the spells are not. Like, I played this spell and then it went straight into my graveyard. So that's not a permanent. But I can play this to destroy one. So I'm going to go ahead and destroy one of his lands, I believe. So since this is a spell, it's going to go into the graveyard. And since I killed his land, it goes into his graveyard. Okay, what am I going to do here? I think I'm going to attack regardless, since I got him kind of on the run here. Now he could choose to use these 2 guys to block. You're allowed to do that. I'm trying to think what I'm trying to say here. But when you're attacking, you can't really say, you can't choose who blocks you. They have the choice to or not. So let's go ahead and try this. I'm guessing he's going to double block me. He's going to do 4 damage to me and kill me. Oh, he didn't. He decided to do it to the other guy. Interesting. So I'm going to kill this guy that brought him another guy out of the graveyard when he came into play. And I'm going to do 1 damage to this guy, which isn't going to kill him. It's just going to hurt him a little bit, and then he's going to go back to full health. This is different than what I was saying earlier with the trample. I mean, it is kind of the same, but it's not. Since there's 2 guys blocking me, the excess damage goes to the other creature. If there wasn't, and I didn't have trample, it would just poof, disappear. So this extra 1 damage is going to go to this guy, and you'll see that. He dies, I die too, and that 1 extra damage is right there. My other guy, though, no one blocked him, so I hit him for 5. So he's pretty close to losing. If I can hit him 1 more time without having any blockers out, he's dead. Or if I hit him with 5 damage with this guy. He played an enchantment. This one's not an aura, as you'll see. It's just going to go sit on the side. And as long as it's out there, he gets the abilities that are listed here in text. I'm not going to go over what those are. They're pretty complicated and they're all over the place. They're pretty cool, but I'm not going to cover all that here. It'd take forever. So let's go ahead and continue. He decided not to fight. Oh, perfect. I just won the game. He decided not to fight because he needed to hold this guy back to block me. Because if he did block me, he'd only take 3 damage and he'd still be alive. But what he doesn't know is I have this other sorcery that's going to allow me to kill him, and I can come in and hit him for 5. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's click here, and then here. They fight each other because that's what this card says. I have 1 health, but there's no one to block, so I don't really care. I'm just going to attack him, turn sideways, and bam. He's down to 0. I win the game. Pretty cool, huh? What you just saw there was there's... Oh, I unlocked a card. Woohoo. Let's go back to the deck manager, or just to the campaign. So, you just played your first game of Magic. Really saw how it was played. You notice I used a green deck and he had a black deck. There's actually 5 different kind of decks, or different color decks, and they all have their strengths and weaknesses. There's some overlap between them all, but mainly if that color, if you pick a color, it's going to have most cards that are doing its strength. So the green deck I just played, it has mainly big creatures. For the amount of mana you pay, you're going to get huge creatures, and it has a ton. There's a ton of green cards, but most of them are big creatures. And then you have, I played against the black deck, which is mainly specializes in like kill spells, stuff that kills other creatures, returning cards from the graveyard, Death Touch, which is an ability that I'm not going to cover here. It still has creatures and everything, but that's what it mainly focuses on. The other color we have is blue. This mainly deals with like card drawing, bouncing other creatures to their hand, countering spells that the other player is going to play. It's kind of control-y. That's what blue specializes in. You have red, which specializes in dealing direct damage to a player. So what I mean by that is, like you saw before, if we wanted to deal damage, we had to attack, and they could choose to block and all that nonsense. But if you had red, all of their spells do direct damage to the player. So they still have creatures and whatnot, but most of their spells and creatures, their abilities, are geared towards doing direct damage to a player. And finally, the last color is white. This color is kind of hard to define. I would say it focuses on lifelink, which is where you deal damage and get life back, giving you health. Just kind of defensive abilities is how I would probably define white. And that's it. There's also one other thing I left out, which is stuff that has no color. Those are like artifacts, which can be equipment, it can be creatures. I didn't cover equipment here. They're kind of like auras, except when your creature dies, it stays on the battlefield. But these things, you can pay a cost to equip them. They give your creatures bonuses, benefits. They're kind of cool. There's not many in this one I'm playing here, Magic 2014, but it is still part of the game. Those ones are colorless. They'll take any color land to play. They're not associated with any color, so I think that about covers the basics for this game. If you guys liked this video or found it useful, please thumbs up, subscribe. I might start putting out maybe some more gameplay videos. I don't know, we'll see. And as always, guys, thanks for watching, and until next time, have a good one.